I pulled into the driveway, the truck's engine still rumbling like my thoughts after a long day. In my hand was Elise's favorite coffee, a triple-shot caramel macchiato from that overpriced shop across town. She swore was the only place that got it right. I'd left work early thinking I'd surprise her, maybe see that smile she used to flash when we were younger, before the kids, before the grind. 13 years of marriage, and I still chased those moments. The house looked quiet, too quiet, like it was holding its breath. I didn't think much of it, just grabbed the coffee and stepped inside, my boots soft on the hardwood. Then I heard her, Elise's voice, low and laughing, coming from the living room. "Victor's their real dad, you know," she said, each word sharp as a blade. "Liam and Ava. Nathan's been raising them for 13 years, and he still thinks they're his. Can you believe it? The guy's clueless." My chest locked up. The coffee slipped from my hand, hitting the floor with a dull thud, the lid popping off, caramel syrup pooling like blood. I stood there, frozen, my pulse hammering in my ears, drowning out everything but her voice. "Victor and I laugh about it," she went on, oblivious to me standing just behind the wall. "Nathan's the perfect chump." My knees wanted to buckle, but I didn't let them. 13 years. Every late night at the office, every soccer game I coached for Liam, every bedtime story I read to Ava, flashed through my head like a movie reel gone wrong. I'd built this life, this family, with my own hands, and now it was crumbling, not with a fight or a confession, but with her smug chuckle over a phone call. My throat burned, not with tears, but with something heavier, like swallowing gravel. I wanted to storm in, demand answers, shake the truth out of her. But my feet wouldn't move. The air felt thick, like it was pressing me into the ground. Elise kept talking, her voice light, like she was gossiping about a stranger. "No guilt here," she said. "Nathan's always been too busy with his contracts, his deals. He never saw it coming." Each word was a punch, and I took them all, standing there like a damned statue. My hands shook, not from fear, but from the rage clawing up my spine, begging to be let loose. I could picture her on the couch, legs crossed, sipping wine, laughing. At the life she'd turned into a lie. My life. Our kids. The kids I'd raised, loved, fought for. They weren't mine. Not by blood. The truth hit like a sledgehammer, and I wasn't ready for the weight. I didn't make a sound, didn't breathe. The coffee stain spread across the floor, seeping into the cracks, and I just stared at it, my mind racing but my body stuck. 13 years, and I was the fool in her story. My heart didn't break. It sank deep and heavy into a place I didn't know I had. I wasn't just betrayed, I was erased. And yet, standing there, I knew one thing. This wasn't the end. It was the start of something else, something she'd never see coming. I stood in the hallway, the echo of Elise's laughter fading like a bad dream, but the weight in my gut stayed, heavy as a lead pipe. My boots felt glued to the floor, the spilled coffee still warm under my soles. I didn't yell, I didn't barge in to confront her. Instead, I bent down, picked up the largest shard of the broken mug, and turned it over in my hand, the jagged edge catching the dim light. My fingers tightened around it, not enough to cut, just enough to feel something real. I walked to the kitchen, slow, deliberate, like a man stepping through a minefield. Elise was still on the phone, her voice a distant hum now, oblivious to the storm she'd unleashed. I set the shard on the counter, grabbed a dish towel, and wiped my hands, the rough fabric scraping my knuckles. The sink was full, plates from last night's lasagna, Liam's cereal bowl, Ava's juice glass. I turned on the faucet, let the water run hot, and started scrubbing. Each swipe mechanical, my eyes fixed on the bubbles. "You home, Nate?" Elise called from the living room, her tone casual, like she hadn't just torn my world apart. "Yeah," I muttered, my voice steady, betraying nothing. "Just cleaning up." I kept moving, rinsed a plate, stacked it in the drainer, wiped the counter, slow and precise, like I was polishing a gun. My mind was a war zone. Images of Liam's first bike ride, Ava's gap-toothed grin, every moment I'd poured into them now tainted. But my hands stayed busy, betraying none of it. I opened the fridge, pulled out a beer, popped the cap, and took a long pull, the cold biting my throat. Elise walked in, phone in hand, her smile as easy as ever. "Rough day?" she asked, leaning against the counter, her perfume sharp and unfamiliar. "Something like that," I said, setting the bottle down, my thumb tracing the label. I didn't look at her. Couldn't. Not because I was afraid of what I'd see, but because I didn't trust what I'd do. My jaw clenched, the muscles tight, as a coiled spring, but I kept my face blank like I was just another guy winding down after work. I grabbed a sponge, attacked a stubborn stain on the sink, the scrub a rhythm to drown out the chaos inside. Elise chatted about her day, some meeting, a new recipe she wanted to try. Her voice a white noise I tuned out. "Sounds good," I said, nodding. My tone flat but polite, like I was reading a script. The kids' drawings hung on the fridge door, crayon scribbles of our family, stick figures holding hands. I stared at them, my chest tight, but I didn't flinch. I finished the beer, tossed the bottle in the recycling and headed to the garage. "Gonna check the truck," I said over my shoulder, not waiting for her reply. The door clicked shut behind me, and in the dim glow of the workbench light I gripped a wrench, my knuckles white, and stood there, silent, the world I knew reduced to ash. I didn't break. I didn't curse. I just breathed, slow and deep, and let the truth settle. A cold, hard stone in my core. The garage smelled of motor oil and sawdust, a sanctuary where I could think or not think at all. I stood at the workbench, the wrench still in my grip, its cold steel grounding me as the world spun out of control. My eyes drifted to the pegboard, where Liam's old baseball glove hung, a Father's Day gift from years back. That glove pulled me somewhere else, to memories I'd buried under the weight of Elise's betrayal, moments that now felt like lies painted in bright colors. I saw us on our honeymoon, driving a beat-up rental car through the Smoky Mountains, Elise singing off-key to Springsteen, her hair whipping in the wind. "This is forever, Nate," she'd said, her hand warm on my thigh, her eyes bright with promise. I'd believed, her every word like a kid swallowing a fairy tale. Then came Liam's birth, the hospital room thick with her sweat and my nerves. She'd clutched my hand, gasping, "You're gonna be the best dad." I'd carried that moment like a badge, proud, unbreakable. Ava's arrival was quieter, but Elise's smile was the same, soft and sure, as she whispered, "Our family's complete now." But the memories twisted, souring as darker ones crept in. There was the night she came home late, her blouse wrinkled, claiming she'd been caught up at book club. I'd nodded, ignoring the faint scent of cologne that wasn't mine, or the Christmas party where she danced too close to Victor, laughing too loud, while I stood by the bar, chalking it up to holiday cheer. "Just friends," she'd said when I asked, her tone sharp, like I'd insulted her. I'd let it go, always let it go, because doubt felt like a betrayal of what we'd built. Another memory hit. A Sunday barbecue, Victor tossing a football with Liam while Elise watched, her gaze lingering too long. "He's great with kids," she'd remarked, casual, but it stuck with me, a splinter I couldn't pull out. There were the evenings she'd vanish to run errands, returning with nothing but a vague excuse. I'd sit in the den, scrolling through work emails, pretending not to notice how her stories never added up. Back then, I'd told myself it was stress, or maybe I wasn't trying hard enough. I'd book date nights, buy her flowers, thinking I could fix what I didn't even know was broken. But those moments, her quick glances at her phone, the way she'd changed the subject when Victor's name came up, were cracks in the foundation, and I'd been too damn blind to see them. Now, standing in the garage, the truth burned like whiskey in my gut. Those weren't just quirks. They were signals, and I'd ignored everyone. My grip on the wrench loosened, and I set it down, the clank echoing in the quiet. The glove on the pegboard stared back, a relic of a life that felt stolen. Elise's words from earlier tonight weren't just a knife. They were a mirror, showing me a fool who'd trusted too much, loved too hard. The man I was back then, the one who believed in forever, was gone. In his place was someone new, someone who wouldn't look away again. The past was a ghost, and I wasn't chasing it anymore. The garage door clicked shut behind me, sealing off the ghosts of yesterday. I stepped back into the house, the hum of the AC a faint pulse in the quiet. My eyes caught the glow of the living room lamp, where Elise sat curled on the couch scrolling her phone, her face lit by the screen's cold light. I didn't confront her, didn't ask why she'd shredded our life with a laugh. Instead, I watched, my senses sharp, picking up details I'd once dismissed, signs that now screamed what I'd been too stubborn to hear. Elise had started carrying her phone everywhere, even to the bathroom, her thumb quick to dim the screen. When I walked by, "Just work stuff," she'd mutter, her lips tight if I lingered too close. At dinner, she'd steer conversations to Victor's latest ventures, some startup he was pitching, some deal he'd closed. "He's killing it," she'd say, her voice bright while her fork pushed peas around her plate. I'd nod, my gut twisting, but say nothing, my silence a shield against the truth I wasn't ready to face. Her wardrobe had changed too. Gone were the comfy sweatshirts she used to wear on weekends. Now it was tailored blouses, heels that clicked on the tile, even for a quick trip to the grocery store. Feeling good about myself, she'd shrug when I raised an eyebrow, her tone daring me to question it. She'd leave for coffee with friends on Saturday mornings, her makeup flawless, but return with no coffee cup, no stories, just a distracted smile. I'd sit on the patio sipping bourbon, watching her pull into the driveway, her hair too perfect for a casual outing. Then there were the kids. Elise started pulling away from Liam and Ava, her patience thin. "Go play outside." She'd snap when Ava begged for a board game, her eyes glued to a text that made her smirk. Victor began showing up unannounced, dropping by with work papers for Elise, his grin too wide as he ruffled Liam's hair. "Good kid," he'd say, his hand lingering, while Elise watched, her expression unreadable. I'd stand in the doorway, my jaw tight, but I didn't call it out. I just noted it, like a hunter tracking prints in the mud. Her excuses piled up. Late nights at the office, though her laptop history showed no work emails. Weekend retreats with her yoga. Group but no yoga mat in her car. "Need some me time," she'd say. Her voice clipped as she packed a bag. I'd mow the lawn, the roar of the engine drowning out the questions I wouldn't ask. Each sign was a brick in a wall I hadn't seen building, and now it loomed, ready to crush me. I kept my routine, grilling burgers for the kids, fixing the leaky faucet, paying the bills. But my eyes were open, cataloguing every glance, every lie. Elise thought I was the same old Nate, too busy with contracts to notice. She was wrong. The man she knew was fading, replaced by someone who saw her every move, every slip. I didn't speak, I didn't accuse, I just watched, my heart a clenched fist, waiting for the moment to strike back. The signs were there, and I was done ignoring them. The patio door slid shut, cutting off the evening crickets as I stepped inside from watching Elise's car pull away again. Her yoga retreat excuse hung in the air like exhaust, but I wasn't chasing shadows anymore. My days of playing the oblivious husband were over. I moved with purpose now, a man assembling a plan as precise as a blueprint. The living room was dark, the kids asleep upstairs, and in that stillness, I became a soldier gearing up for a fight no one else could see. I started with the truth. Late that night, I sat at my desk, the glow of my laptop screen casting sharp angles across the room. I ordered a DNA test kit online, selecting express delivery to a P.O. box I'd rented under a fake name. Discreet results, the website promised, and I needed that. I couldn't risk Elise finding out. Next, I dialed a private investigator, a guy I'd met through a business deal years ago. "Track her movements," I told him, my voice low, steady. "I want names, places, times." He didn't ask why, just said, "Give me a week." Protecting what was mine came next. I met a lawyer in a diner off the highway, the kind of place where truckers and nobodies blend in. Over black coffee and a greasy burger, I laid out my needs. "Set up a trust," I said, sliding him a list of assets. "Our house, my company shares, the lake cabin. Put it all under my sister's name." He nodded, scribbling notes, as I memorized every exit in the room, a habit from years of closing high-stakes deals. Back home, I began transferring funds, small amounts at first, into a new account Elise didn't know existed, each click of the mouse a step toward locking her out. Evidence was my ammunition. I scoured my company's financials, hunting for discrepancies tied to Victor. Late nights in my home office, I cross-referenced invoices, spotting padded expenses and shady vendor names. Grayson Consulting, one read, a shell company I'd never approved. My pulse stayed even, but my focus was razor-sharp, like sighting a target through a scope. I saved every file to an encrypted drive, hidden in a folder labeled tax records. I kept up appearances. Mornings, I'd pack lunches for Liam and Ava, joking about their school projects. Evenings, I'd nod as Elise rambled about her day. My smile a mask I'd perfected. "You're in a good mood," she said once, pouring herself wine, her guard down. "Just appreciating what we've got," I replied, my tone warm, my eyes cold. Every word was calculated, every gesture a brick in the wall I was building around her lies. My plan took shape like a machine, each part interlocking, no room for error. I rented a storage unit across town, stashing copies of deeds, contracts, and the kids' birth certificates. I bought a burner phone, its number untraceable, for calls to the PI and lawyer. Each move was deliberate, a chess play she'd never suspect. The turmoil in my chest, betrayal, rage, loss, didn't slow me. It fueled me, a fire I kept banked, burning just hot enough to keep me sharp. I wasn't breaking. I was building. And Elise would never see it coming. The burner phone buzzed in my jacket pocket as I locked the storage unit, the clang of the metal gate echoing in the empty lot. My plan was in motion, gears turning, but nothing prepared me for the truths about to crash through. I climbed into my truck, the leather seat creaking under me, and checked the message, a secure email from the DNA lab. My fingers hovered over the screen, steady but heavy, like I was defusing a bomb. I opened it. Paternity probability. 0% for Liam Carter, 0% for Ava Carter. The words burned into my eyes, final, unyielding. Those kids, my kids, weren't mine. Not a drop of my blood ran through them. I sat there, engine off, the world outside muted. My hands didn't shake, but my chest tightened, like a vice clamping down on my ribs. I'd coached Liam's little league games, taught Ava to tie her. Shoes stayed up nights when they were sick. Now biology stripped me bare, rewriting every memory as a lie. I forced a breath, slow, controlled, and locked the phone. The pain was there, raw and jagged, but I shoved it down, a soldier swallowing shrapnel. Another email landed, this one from the private investigator. I pulled into a gas station, the neon lights harsh against the dusk, and opened the file. Photos loaded first. Elise slipping into Victor's downtown condo, her hand in his, their lips locked in a stairwell. Timestamps showed 3 visits that week, each lasting hours. A video clip followed, grainy but clear, Elise laughing on Victor's balcony saying, "Nate's too busy to care, we're set." My jaw locked, teeth grinding, as her betrayal took shape, not just personal, but calculated. The PI's report dug deeper. Bank records traced payouts from my company to Grayson Consulting, Victor's front siphoning thousands monthly. Scanned documents showed Elise's signature on approvals, penned while I was out of town on bids. They weren't just stealing my family, they were gutting my life's work, dollar by dollar. I leaned back, the headrest hard against my skull. Hand stared at the dashboard. The numbers, the images, the signatures, they weren't just evidence. They were a conspiracy. A machine built to dismantle me. My mind raced, piecing it together. Victor, the charming friend I'd hired years ago, had wormed into my world, and Elise had opened the door. Every handshake, every shared beer, was a mask for their theft. The rage wasn't loud, it was cold, precise, like a blade honed for one clean cut. I didn't punch the steering wheel or curse their names. I saved the files, forwarded them to my lawyer, and started the truck. The engine roared, a low growl matching the fire in my veins. I drove home, the city lights blurring past, my focus absolute. The turmoil churned. Loss for the kids I'd raised, fury for the life they'd stolen. But it didn't break me. It sharpened me. Elise and Victor thought they'd played me for a fool, but their game was exposed, every move laid bare. I wasn't the man they knew anymore. I was the one holding the truth, and it was a weapon I'd wield when the time was right. For now, I kept driving, my grip on the wheel as tight as my resolve. The truck's headlights sliced through the night as I pulled into our cul-de-sac. the truth from the DNA results and PI's files still searing my mind. Elise and Victor thought they'd outsmarted me, but I was done being their pawn. I parked, killed the engine and stepped into the house, my boots silent on the rug. The kids' sneakers were by the door, a reminder of what I was fighting for. I wasn't just avenging a betrayal. I was reclaiming my life. With every step I set a trap, precise and invisible, to let them bury themselves. I played the doting husband to perfection. Next morning I surprised Elise with a bouquet of roses, her favorite, and a reservation at that Italian place she loved. "You're spoiling me, Nate," she said, her smile wide, unsuspecting. "You deserve it," I replied, my voice warm, my eyes unreadable. I needed her complacent, blind to the net closing around her. I slipped a GPS tracker under her car's wheel well, its signal linked to an app on my burner phone. Every move she made, I'd know. At work, I rigged the bait. I told my assistant I'd be out of town for a client pitch, but I stayed local, holed up in a motel with my laptop. I emailed Victor from a dummy account, posing as a potential investor for his consulting scam. "Heard you're the guy to talk to," I wrote, dangling a fake $50,000 deal. He bit, scheduling a meeting at a downtown bar. I hired a freelance tech to hack a live feed from the bar's security cams, streaming it to my screen. Victor wouldn't know I was watching his every smirk. The real trap was Elise's birthday party, a week away. I suggested a big bash at our house, knowing she'd love the spotlight. "Invite everyone," I said, casual, as we flipped through guest lists. "Even Victor?" she asked, her tone too light. "Sure," I grinned, like it was nothing. I rented a projector, claiming it was for a slideshow of her best moments. Instead, I compiled a video, the PI's photos of her with Victor, bank transfers to his shell company, her forged signatures, and the DNA results as the final blow. I tested the file in my office, the images flickering like a silent war. To keep her off guard, I leaned into her ego. I complimented her new haircut, helped her pick a dress for the party. "You're glowing," I said, handing her a glass of Chardonnay, my tone smooth as steel. She bought it, chattering about decorations while I nodded, my mind on the tech syncing the projector to a remote trigger. The PI sent updates. Elise met Victor twice that week, their texts brazen, planning a getaway once Nate's out of the picture. I saved every message, my blood ice cold, my focus unbreakable. Each move was a thread in a web only I could see. The turmoil, grief for the family I thought I had, fury at their greed, didn't shake me. It drove me, a quiet engine, humming under my skin. Elise and Victor thought they held the cards, but I'd stacked the deck. The party was coming, and with it their reckoning. I wasn't just setting a trap, I was building their downfall, and they'd walk right into it, smiling. The backyard glowed under string lights, laughter and clinking glasses filling the air as Elise's birthday party hummed with life. I stood by the grill, flipping steaks, my face a mask of calm while the remote trigger for the projector burned in my pocket. Guests milled around, neighbors, co-workers, Victor with his slick grin, unaware of the bomb I was about to detonate. Elise, radiant in her new dress, raised a champagne flute, calling out, "Nate, say something sweet." I nodded, my pulse steady as a drum, and stepped to the patio, the crowd parting like a curtain. I tapped the remote. The projector hummed to life, its beam cutting through the dusk. Faces turned to the screen stretched across the garage wall. First came the images, Elise and Victor tangled in an embrace outside his condo, their silhouettes unmistakable. Gasps rippled through the guests. Then bank statements flashed, highlighting Victor's fake company draining my firm. Elise's forged signatures circled in red. A recorded clip played next, her voice crisp. "Nate's too busy to care. We're set." The final slide hit like a gunshot. DNA results declaring Liam and Ava, my heart's core, weren't mine. Silence choked the yard. Elise's flute shattered on the stone path, her face drained of color, eyes wide like a trapped animal. Victor froze, his tie askew as guests whispered, their stares slicing through him. "Turn it off, Nate!" Elise shrieked, lunging for the projector, But I stood firm, arms crossed, letting the truth do its work. Her sister, Clara, backed away, shaking her head. "I'm done with you," she muttered, voice breaking. The crowd thinned, guests slipping out, their murmurs a tide pulling Elise's world apart. Victor stammered, "This is a misunderstanding," but his voice cracked, drowned by the weight of evidence. My lawyer, invited as a friend, stepped forward, handing me a folder. I opened it, revealing fraud complaints filed against Victor that morning, now in the DA's hands. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder, and 2 squad cars rolled up the street. Officers stepped out, their badges glinting, and approached Victor. "Grayson, we need to talk," one said, cuffs clicking. Elise sank to her knees, sobbing, her dress pooling in the dirt, but I felt no pity, only the cold satisfaction of justice. The party was over. Tables stood abandoned, half-eaten cake melting in the heat. I watched the cops lead Victor away, his head bowed, while Elise clutched at Clara, who turned her back. My chest ached, not for her but for the kids upstairs asleep, unaware their world had shifted. The turmoil, grief for the family I'd lost, rage at their deceit, simmered, but I didn't revel in their fall. I'd exposed their scheme not for revenge, but for truth, a foundation to rebuild on. As the last guests vanished, I unplugged the projector, its hum fading to silence. Elise looked at me, mascara streaking, but I said nothing. There was no need. The evidence had spoken, louder than any shout. I turned, walked inside, and locked the door, the click final. Their lies were ash now, and I stood in the wreckage, not broken, but resolute, ready to face whatever came next. The house was a tomb after the party's chaos, the backyard string lights swaying in the breeze like forgotten ghosts. I stood in the kitchen, the silence thick, broken only by the fridge's low hum. Elise was still outside, her silhouette, slumped on the patio, but I felt no urge to comfort her. The man who'd once run to her side was gone, replaced by someone forged in the fire of her lies. I pulled a manila envelope from my desk, divorce papers, signed and notarized, and set it on the counter, its weight heavier than stone. I opened the back door, the hinges creaking. Elise looked up, her face streaked with tears, her dress crumpled. "Nate, please," she whispered, voice raw, reaching for me. I stepped back, my boots firm on the threshold. "We're done," I said, my tone flat, final, like a judge's. "Gavel, these are for you. Sign them. Don't call. Don't come back." I handed her the envelope, her fingers trembling as she took it. Her eyes searched mine, desperate for a crack in my resolve, but I gave her nothing, just the cold truth of a life severed. She stammered, "You can't just erase me. The kids—" I cut her off. "Liam and Ava stay with me," I said. "My—" voice steel. "You lost them when you chose Victor." The words weren't cruel, just fact, and they hit her like a slap. She clutched the papers, her sobs muffled, but I turned away, the door clicking shut behind me. Upstairs I checked on the kids, their soft breathing a lifeline in the dark. They weren't mine by blood, but they were mine in every way that mattered, and I'd fight for them. The next morning I met my lawyer at his office, a squat building by the freeway. "File these today," I told him, sliding the papers across his desk. He nodded, no questions, his pen scratching notes. I'd already ensured Elise's name was off every asset, house, accounts, business, locked tight in my sister's trust. Victor's fraud case was escalating. The DA had enough to bury him. Elise had nothing left to claim, no leverage to wield. I walked out, the sun harsh on my face, feeling not victory but clarity. Back home I packed Elise's things, clothes, jewelry, her yoga books, into boxes, leaving them by the curb for her to collect. A neighbor watched, curious, but I didn't explain. I owed no one answers. When Elise showed up, her car idling, I stayed inside, watching through the blinds as she loaded the boxes, her movement slow, defeated. She glanced at the house, maybe hoping I'd appear, but I didn't. The engine revved and she was gone. A chapter closed without a word. The turmoil lingered, ache for the family I'd believed in, fury at years stolen, but it didn't own me. I stood taller, my shoulders square, a man who'd faced betrayal and walked through it. I wasn't running from the pain. I was done carrying it. The kids' laughter drifted from the living room, where they played cards, and I knew I'd build something new, not for Elise, not for the past, but for us. The door was shut, and I was free to step forward. The morning after Elise drove away, I woke to the scent of rain on asphalt, the world washed clean. I stood at the kitchen window, coffee mug warm in my hands, watching droplets streak the glass. The house felt lighter, unburdened by the lies that had choked it. I wasn't whole yet. Scars from betrayal don't fade overnight. But I was standing, and that was enough. My life with Liam and Ava, the kids I'd chosen despite blood, was a blank page, and I was ready to write it. I started small. I swapped the old curtains for blinds, their clean lines letting sunlight flood the living room. I taught myself to grill salmon, Liam's favorite, chuckling when he gave my first attempt a thumbs up. Ava and I planted a vegetable garden out back, her small hands patting soil around tomato seedlings. "Will they grow big, Dad?" she asked, eyes wide. "As big as you," I said, ruffling her hair, my heart steady, anchored by her trust. Weekends, we'd hike trails in the state park, backpacks bouncing, their laughter echoing off pine trees. Work became my proving ground. I renegotiated contracts, rooted out Victor's last traces from my company, and hired a new CFO with a handshake. And a gut feeling. A client sent a note after a deal, praising my unshakable focus. I kept it in my desk drawer, not for pride, but as proof I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. Nights, I'd sit on the porch, a cold soda in hand, the stars sharp above, and feel the quiet not as loss but as space to rebuild. The kids asked about their mom once, their voices soft over dinner. "She's figuring things out," I said, keeping it simple, shielding them from the wreckage. They nodded, trusting me, and we moved on to homework, to life. I didn't need Elise's apologies or Victor's regret. Their absence was my freedom, a chance to redefine family on my terms. I bought a puppy, a scrappy mutt we named Scout, and his clumsy bounds through the yard brought smiles I hadn't seen in months. The turmoil, grief for a marriage that never was, anger at years stolen, still lingered, a dull ache in my bones. But it didn't rule me. I'd faced the worst, stared it down, and walked away stronger. My life wasn't perfect, it was real, built on choices I could stand behind. I'd learned to trust my instincts, to value the love I gave over the lies I'd been fed. Each day I carved out a little more peace, not for anyone else, but for me, for Liam, for Ava. Now, I'm curious about you. Betrayal cuts deep, but so does resilience. What would you do if the life you built turned out to be a lie? Would you confront it head-on, or, like me, bide your time, turning pain into power? Share your thoughts. How do you rebuild when trust is shattered? Your story might just spark something for someone else walking through their own fire.